Time to rest, but you say run. An audiofic by FeatheredMask. Summary. Katsuki knows what it's like to have blood on his hands from plans gone wrong. Neito has lived the danger of walking into enemy territory and pretending to be one of them. Momo knows she's good for two things, guns and medical supplies. Mei has the eyes of a sniper, but her passion is for invention. Shouto sits in the back, keeping their fires alight and making sure the medication doesn't grow mold. Toshinori isn't exactly sure where all these kids came from, but they badly needed a home and refused to let go of each other. Obviously, he had to adopt all 5 of them. Chapter 1. Katsuki woke up with a gasp. The nightlight dimmed before its soft glow swelled again to bathe the room in purple. It shifted to blue, then green and yellow. Katsuki stared at it, willing the simple light to chase away the monsters as he caught his breath. The smell of sweet nitroglycerin hung thick around him, but he didn't want to wake anyone else, if they were even there. His heart skipped at that thought. He threw off the blankets, going straight for the bed beside his. He had to know they were still there, that they were still alive. Katsuki stared at the sleeping face of Shouto, the other boy breathing softly, undisturbed by the same nightmares. Alive. It wasn't enough. Katsuki went to the next bed, and then the next, careful not to disturb any of his brothers or sisters as he made sure they were all still breathing, that their hearts were still beating. Mei, drooling on her pillow, alive. Neito, somehow turned around in his sleep so his feet were at the headboard, alive. Momo, curled up with stuffed toys in shapes Katsuki didn't recognize, alive. It wasn't enough. Katsuki looked hopelessly to the rest of the room, his heart clenching at the absence of other beds. There should have been 25 others. 25 more beds to fill the room and other rooms. 25 smiling faces spilling out from doors and into the hallway. All the way from toddlers to young teenagers should have been there, not just a handful of preteens who had managed to squeak past death. Blood stained his hands, just like ink had stained his hands when he presented his family with the plan that had gotten them all killed. Katsuki flinched at the creak of a door, and he blinked in the sudden light that spilled in through the open bedroom door. A silhouette stood there, tall like something out of his nightmares, but the voice that came was comfortingly human. "Couldn't sleep again?" Toshinori asked in a whisper. "Come out here, kid. I'll make you some hot chocolate." Katsuki tiptoed past his brothers and sisters and out into the hallway. Toshinori closed the door behind them with a soft click. Another day of middle school. Izuku kept his head down as the bell rang, pretending to review something in his notebook. He didn't want to meet the eyes of his bullies and give them a reason to make fun of him this early in the day. "Class, we have 2 new students today." Izuku looked up at the teacher's announcement, and he stared as 2 boys entered the classroom, their uniforms that particular shade of black that hadn't started fading yet. One had blonde, spiky hair and a bite to his scowl. The other had red and white hair. But the most striking aspect that Izuku couldn't take his eyes off was the large scar on the left side of his face. "I'm Yagi Shouto," the boy with 2 hair colors said, bowing to the class. "Please take care of me." "Yagi Katsuki," the blonde introduced himself. He didn't bow, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Please take care of us," Shouto stated in a flat voice with another bow, covering for his sibling? They didn't look anything alike. The teacher nodded. Yes, welcome to Aldera Middle School. There are some seats in the back you 2 can take, behind Midoriya. Midoriya, raise your hand. Now, to get on with class." Izuku raised his hand, ignoring the whispers that were already starting to circle around the new kids. When they got near him, he hesitantly offered, "Hi, I'm Midoriya Izuku. He's quirkless." Another student cut in before he could finish, and Izuku faltered. Red eyes and heterochromatic eyes that matched Shouto's split hair stared at him. He tried not to shrink back, hoping, despite history having proved otherwise, that these 2 wouldn't mind. That he would have 2 classmates this year that didn't think lower of him just because... "Cannon fodder," Katsuki stated, giving him a new label. Izuku shrunk down, lifting his hair a notebook to hide behind. Too much to hope for, he guessed. He should have known. He didn't expect Shouto to smack Katsuki in the back of the head right after that comment. "Hey, the hell was that for, Icy Hot?" "Sorry about my brother," Shouto addressed Izuku to his shock. "He has a bad habit of judging others for their quirks." Katsuki's hands crackled with bright sparks, catching the wide eyes of the rest of the class. It's a valuable life skill, he spat back. The teacher at the front of the classroom clapped his hands, trying to get their attention. Hey, no fighting. Quiet down and sit down. I have a class to teach. Shouto shoved Katsuki towards an empty desk, and the two mumbled something to each other. Izuku stole glances at them for the rest of the day, wondering about the two brothers. The week wasn't even over before Izuku overheard that the Yagi brothers had been expelled from their previous school. Izuku ate his bento sitting on the edge of one of the koi ponds outside of the school. One perk to being a loner, even if he was ostracized and it wasn't by choice, was that nobody took much notice of him. Both a blessing and a curse, he could be invisible. Or that was his best guess of the situation anyway. Maybe they just thought he wouldn't snitch on them. It wasn't like he made friends with any of the teachers, after all. Izuku ate his bento in silence, keeping his eyes down instead of up at the scene happening in front of him. It had started with Tsubasa and his band of bullies following after Katsuki, trying to goad him into talking. The new kid said nothing, hands in his pockets. Then voices rose, and things escalated when Tsubasa shoved Katsuki against the wall, the bully's dragon wings spreading out as large as they would go. Izuku ate his bento, tasteless in his mouth. Heard you and your brother were expelled from Somei Private Academy, Tsubasa said, and Izuku could hear the grin in his voice. What did you do, Prep? Put gum in someone's hair? Cheat on a test? Your quirk is some flashy lights, big deal. Nothing's going to beat literal wings. Maybe if he ignored them, they would disappear faster. Shouts from Tsubasa's gang made Izuku look up, and he saw Tsubasa on the ground, in a sprawl of limbs and wings several feet back, the rest of his gang stepping back from Katsuki. Tsubasa scrambled to his feet, and it looked like he was going to protest, but Katsuki beat him to it. My quirk is explosion, idiots, he said, his hands out of his pockets. You're just wasting your quirks like this. Before Izuku could look away, Katsuki threw his hands forward, and they exploded. The bullies screamed, thrown back by the blast, and they, along with Tsubasa, scrambled to run away. Katsuki watched them go, scowling. Ugh, kids. Izuku flinched when he turned those red eyes on him. He felt frozen as Katsuki walked towards him, stopped in front of him, and Izuku almost didn't process the words coming out of his mouth. Can I have some? Huh? Katsuki pointed at his forgotten bento. Your lunch. Can I have some? He asked again. Sure? Izuku flipped over his chopsticks and shakily picked up a piece of breaded pork, dropping it in Katsuki's open hand. A hand that had recently fired off a large explosion and didn't look any worse for it. Thanks. Instead of leaving, however, Katsuki dropped to sit beside him on the edge of the pond, biting into the piece of pork. Calm. But Izuku knew, at any moment, Katsuki's fuse would light and explode at any time just like his quirk. He couldn't keep himself from staring at the boy beside him. Katsuki, boy with an amazing quirk, eating katsudon. Right next to him, Izuku, who was apparently cannon fodder. Peeking from under his uniform's collar that had been pulled askew by the recent event, was a string of numbers tattooed on his neck. 62486. Katsuki's expression suddenly changed, and Izuku realized he'd been caught staring. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stare. Sorry, I shouldn't have. Katsuki stood up abruptly, tugging his uniform collar up to hide his neck. Fuck off, he snapped, stalking off. Izuku's shoulders fell, his apologies catching in his throat. His bento had slipped off his lap, upturned on the ground. The next morning, Katsuki arrived to school wearing a black choker around his neck. Not a fashion statement, barely noticed past the back of his uniform collar, but it hid the numbers. He didn't look at Izuku. Izuku couldn't help but notice that Shouto wore a matching choker. But that was a year ago, and Izuku never asked about it. End of Chapter 1.